Hey everyone, Leanne Pilkington here with the latest Courageous Conversation with Will Ainsworth. And unfortunately, Will, this is take two for us.
It is.
I'm not afraid to admit it. I reckon that something just happened in the cloud and you reckon I just didn't press record. So, you know.
So you reckon I reached through to your computer and unrecorded it, do you? Yeah, right.
No, I didn't say that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a shame because it was a cracker of a conversation. Let's hope we can do as well this week. And thank you so much for making the time again. I really appreciate it.
It's no problem at all, but sequels are always disappointing. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, so the reason that I was keen to speak to you in the first place is that you've been really open about some of your mental health struggles in relation to depression and why you got out of the real estate industry, because you were a high-performing salesperson down in Geelong, selling about 100 properties a year, as well as a director of the business, right?
Yeah, I was. So it was a pretty full-on job.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you started to struggle. Can you just talk about what happened, why, and how that kind of messed with your head, I guess?
Yeah. Okay. So to make it brief, basically about I'm 39 now. So when I was 30, unfortunately, my old man, Dad, passed away. He was an alcoholic and very successful in his own right. He played footy for the Cats and he was a lawyer in town and did a lot of good things in the town. But little did people know he was actually a suffering alcoholic, and that just threw me for six because it was quite a sudden passing. And at the time, I was quite a heavy drinker as well. I sort of looked, as you do with it, everyone does with their mum and dad, they look up at them and they admire and they're their role models. And so I basically fell into a big hole of depression pretty quickly after that. And I ended up stopping work for about 9 months and I was seeking help, medication, psychology appointments, everything you can possibly imagine I was doing. And bit by bit, I worked my way back to some mental health that enabled me to get back to work. So that was 9 years ago. And even though I was, as you said, fairly successful, I never really recovered from that. It was always a managerial thing that I was constantly keeping tabs on it daily, even probably hourly to a point. So
that's exhausting, right?
Oh yeah, it's exhausting having depression, and it's exhausting trying to keep on top of depression. So, So basically, fast forward to about a year ago when COVID hit all around the country. Like everyone, I went home and sort of had a bit of time to reflect on life and slow down a little bit, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And it just dawned on me that I just couldn't do it anymore. I could, but there was going to come a point where I was probably going to be no good to anybody. So I had to make that hard decision for my wife, for my kids, for me, that let's go out on top, so to speak, rather than just burn myself into the ground and be no good as a dad or a husband or a friend.
Yeah. So that must have been a really difficult decision.
So difficult. It was, and it still is. I still dwell on it. I still don't know whether I made the right decision, but at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision in life. There's no time to sit around and worry too much about it, because that's what would be the point. I would be actually undoing all of what I was trying to achieve in the first place. So I've made the decision, and I was actually talking to my wife about an investment property we're looking to buy before I got on here with you. And she was like, should we, shouldn't we? Do we have this? Do we have that? And I said, let's just do it or not. Do we want to do it? Yep, cool, let's just do it. And now that I've made the commitment, that's what we do. And it's the same with everything in life. Yeah. I don't have time to sit around and procrastinate, because I believe that.
I was just going to say, that whole procrastination, I'm massively guilty of that. When I think we probably had this conversation last week, but anyway, we'll have it again. We've just bought the Lang & Simmons business, and there was a whole lot of stuff that I had to do in relation to that. So ASIC forms and bank loans and all of that stuff, financial forecasts, and it's not that easy to forecast anyway. And I just kept on saying to everybody, so bad at this shit. I'm so bad at this. I'm so bad at this. And then I wasn't doing anything. And then I was getting anxious and I wasn't sleeping. And then it's like, I've got a cure for this. Why don't I just do it? And
Yeah.
then hopefully I won't have to be anxious about it anymore because it's done and I've moved on, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And I don't know who it was, but someone said, in actual fact, not making a decision is a decision in itself. So you either make a decision or you don't. They're both a decision. And for me, I'd rather make the wrong decision than not make one at all.
Yeah, it's so true. You've just got to keep moving forward, right? And every decision you make is not going to be the right one.
No.
But so long as you learn from it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've made shitloads of bad decisions, but they shape at you as a person, and they shape, what you do.
True.
And the worse the decision to make, the harder it is to make it again, because you're so scared of doing that again. So yeah, just move on and make the right decision again.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you are suffering from depression, can you kind of talk me through how that manifests for you?
Yeah, it's basically a sense of cloudiness, and speaking of decisions, ironically, it's really hard to make decisions because you can't think clearly.
Yeah.
And I kind of picture like this, my brain is like a whole bunch of cobwebs that I just can't quite break through. And I'm trying to get through them to see the light, but it's just not there, and everything's, fuzzy and hazy. And I know that sounds silly, but that's a visual that I can try and give your listeners to understand it. It's tiring. I'm short-tempered. I'm short-tempered at the best of times. So
I'll remember that.
Yeah, just ask my wife yet again. But so those, because you're tired all the time, so therefore your temper's not great, or your mood's not great, and it's I'm always tired, and it's a really horrible place to be. And
does everything sort of feel like it's black and white rather than like no colour?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, it's sort of like when you drive to work, you get to work and you go, oh shit, I don't really even know what lights were red or green or what colours were around me or what cars were around me. You just do it on autopilot.
Yeah.
It's sort of the same. You can't really get into that mindful state where you're in the moment. You're kind of just on autopilot, and your body's and your brain's just kind of doing what it knows by being, learned experiences over time.
Yeah.
And so, I'll get to the end of the day and I kind of feel like I've been asleep. Like there's not really much going on up there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've got someone close to me who suffers from depression, and they said to me that they couldn't work out, they couldn't do any projects because they couldn't work out what they had to do first or what tools they needed to do the job.
Yeah, I'm really interesting you say that, because in my current role, I had a chat with one of my one of the other managers the other day, and he said, "Oh, how do you map out, or how do you forecast what's going on in your role?" And I said, I don't. And he's like, "What do you mean?" Because he's quite analytical, and I'm like, "I don't know, I just do stuff." And he goes, "Yeah, but how do you know like what you're doing?" And I said, "I honestly, if there's ever a moment where I don't have anything to do, I pick up the phone and I call someone to do business with them. Like that's what I've done as a real estate agent. So by default, it's sort of all I know." And he goes, "Don't you sit down for like a couple of hours and map it out on a piece of paper?" I'm like, "No, and this is the wrong thing, by the way. I should do that, but I actually really struggle doing that. Like you said about the person close to you, it's really, really difficult."
Yeah, that's interesting. I do. I mean, I write myself I've always got a massive to-do list, but it's just as things pop into my head, I write stuff down. The only time I go through a massive planning process is kind of my Christmas holidays is when I do that. Because I need to have that kind of direction for the year. But I like to do stuff as it comes to me and as it's pertinent, rather than just strictly following a plan.
Yes.
Sorry to my board members. That's just the way I roll.
Well, that's it. It works for you. It may not work for people around you, but they kind of have to, they have to revolve around what works for you as well.
Oh, that's the joy of being the boss, quite frankly. So how do you, because obviously you still suffer from depression today. So how do you manage it?
Fortunately, and I guess with every sort of bad thing that goes on in your life, like we mentioned before, you learn and you grow from that. So I've learned over that 9 years how to read my body and my mind and my brain really, really well. I'm very sort of in tune with what's going on, and I can almost predict things. So like in my day job as an ex-real estate agent, if I was burning the candle at both ends for a few days, I would actually go, you know what, in a couple of days, I'm probably going to have some depression back, because I just know what my capabilities are. That doesn't mean I always stuck within them. I always push the boundaries, but so I know myself so well that I can actually predict if I'm working too hard, what's going to happen in a day or two's time.
Right.
But my wife's a great indicator. She'll know probably before I do. I don't know how she does, but she kind of has that intuition about, maybe it's the fact that I want to sleep in, or maybe it's the fact that I'm a little bit grumpy with the kids or a bit short-tempered or something.
And it's also, and I'm not saying this about you, but what I can see is that the smile doesn't quite reach the eyes, or you feel like there's a bit of a mask, and it's like, hold on a minute, you're trying too hard. What's going on? Talk to me. Yeah,
100%. So I guess in the past, I would try and push through all of that and sort of almost be in denial that I'm in this depressive state. Whereas now I catch onto it and go, right, I need a day where I'm really nice on myself, go and maybe get a massage. And even though I do my work, I probably go at 70 or 80%.
Yep.
And to me, that's way better than pushing it too hard again and then being down at the 10 or 20% for a few days.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, I try and catch it and manage it. And that so far has worked for me.
Yeah. Okay. Tools like meditation. Are you a believer in meditation and exercise and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, exercise I do probably 5 days a week. Meditation I go through, I've got to be honest, I go through kind of chunks where I'll be right into it, and then I'll get out of that habit and not do it for a couple of months and then go, oh, let's get back into it. So I'm not amazing with it, but I do believe that it's got a really strong ability to help not just people with depression, but anybody. But like every human being, I'm not a robot. I come in and out of habits as well.
Yeah, totally. I tried to commit to meditating, but I get anxious that I'm wasting time. And so I was really happy to hear someone on a podcast talk about the fact that it's not just it's about mindfulness. And so for some people, reading a book can be mindful. And I thought, like, one of the things that makes me happy is just to read.
Yeah.
And so now I do find that if I've got a lot going on, I will take half an hour at, sometimes it's 5 a.m. To read a book, because I get engrossed in the story, and my mind's not worrying about all the other things. So it's just kind of just gives it a little bit of a rest.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That is, I mean, there's many forms of meditation. That's precisely the point of the mindfulness type meditation, is to be in the moment. And if you're reading and you're not thinking about the podcast that you didn't record with Will Ainsworth the week before.
Hey, settle down. Be nice.
But no, and it works for everybody. Some people garden, some people exercise, some people do something, but leave your phone at home, be in the moment, and that is a form of meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very good advice to find out, like, to know yourself well enough, and then to find out what works for you, I think is incredibly important.
It is. And I think there's no one size fits all. So
no.
Once again, it is what works for you, and I wouldn't let anyone else tell me otherwise. If they say, I don't know, you exercise too much or whatever it might be, well, no, that's what or you don't exercise enough, or no, that's how my body works, and maybe it's different for yours, but that'll work for me.
Yeah. Don't judge me. I'm not interested in other people's opinions.
That's exactly right. 100%. Yeah.
So you're doing a lot of coaching in the real estate space now. What do you think is lacking for people? What are are you seeing recurring themes with the coaching that you're doing?
Yeah, I am. I think it's, and particularly in the market that we're in, is everyone's running around like a headless chook, trying to satisfy all the buyers, and are therefore not necessarily prospecting the way they would if the market was a little bit quieter. And then they're going through the peaks and troughs of, I've got 5 listings and now I'm so busy selling them, and now I've sold them, shit, now I've got to go back and prospect again. And that's why they're having ups and down months, like everyone's seen before. They're like a heartbeat, up and down, up and down.
Hello. Yeah. When you stop prospecting, yeah, I know it's hard. I get it though. It's hard to find the time,
Yeah.
right?
So I guess, and you just said the word there, I guess time management,
Mm.
and as a lot of people call it, choice management, is we all have the same amount of time in the day, but it's what we choose to do with that.
So yeah, I know my husband, with you, I haven't had time for that. It's like, no, you haven't prioritized that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm not suggesting, once again, even as an agent, yes, I was sort of known for my prospecting, my databasing, but did I do it every single day? No, I didn't. Very much the 80-20 rule. If I
Yeah.
slipped one day for whatever reason, the next day I was back on the wagon. I didn't let one day turn into 2 and 3 and 5. And so I just think agents need to decide what's important to them in their business. And for me, the long-term business is much more sustainable than being reactive to everything that comes across your desk now. If someone wants to sell tomorrow, but they've never met you, you have no relationship with them. So that vendor is more than likely going to go with the cheapest agent who promises the most money.
Yeah.
Whereas if you met that person a year ago and built a relationship with them, I can guarantee you've got a much better chance of A, getting the listing, but B, getting it at the fee, the marketing that you are worth. So,
but a lot of agents are very transactional rather than relationship driven, right?
they are, but I believe the best agents do both.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Transactional, yes, but that's because they've built more relationships with people over a sustained period of time. So my motto in real estate was always, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm thinking about this time next year's business, not now, even though naturally it's important to get there. If I set up now last year, I don't have to worry about it because I've got a pipeline so healthy and so full that I'm thinking about next year because I'm comfortable that business is just going to come to me by virtue of the work I've done.
It's a lot more enjoyable, isn't it, when you're working like that?
I could predict, I could go, this month I'm going to get 13 listings, and I'd probably be right 1 or 2 listings either way.
Yeah.
And then I'd go, based on that, I'll sell 11 properties next month.
Yeah.
And my average commission's 12 grand. So I'm going to write $130,000. And I could already almost bank that because I knew my business so well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I find so many agents don't know their numbers well enough. They don't know their market share. They're satisfied with a market share that is less than realistic to sustain the amount of money that they say they want to generate.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yeah, most definitely. I don't know that that's their fault. I mean, as you know, the entry to real estate is not very difficult. So
No.
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the person that's employed them or the manager or the director or the CEO, whoever it is, give them a template to work off because they don't know what they don't know. And if a director just says, now you've got to go call some people and get some listings, that they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then they build habits around that. They see other people in their office doing the same thing because they weren't taught, and it just goes on and on. It's just, Yet I've seen good offices that when you go in, they say you will not be listing and selling a property until you have 500 pieces of clean data. And whether that takes a month or 6 months, completely up to you.
Up to you.
I've seen that be a ridiculously sustainable business because that's setting the foundation for a good agent's career.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the problems is that in the industry is that our business owners are often really good salespeople themselves, and they go, okay, I want to do this for myself, but they don't have any real leadership skills. They don't take themselves away and actually learn how to be a leader. They just have to run around listing and selling to pay the rent and pay the staff and all of that stuff. So it's challenging.
Yeah, it is. And I've got to be honest, I was probably one of them. I knew my business and how to run my team, but to actually be able to replicate that with other people was always difficult because I was like every, I suppose, high-performing agent. I was a bit of a control freak. So let me do it. I'll show you how to do it rather than let them make mistakes and learn on the job. So that's something that I, over time, tried to build into my business as well, was letting people take the lead. Which from an ego point of view, and let's be honest, we're in sales, so most of us have one. That was hard to let go.
Yeah, it can be. And it's also, well, I know that that's $12,000. Then if I don't take control of it, I know that I've got a, 80% chance of getting it. But, Leanne might only have a 30% chance of getting it. So you don't want to let it go, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for taking the time again today. I so appreciate, you know, double up. Anyway, I'll return the favour, I promise.
Thanks so much for having me, Leanne. It's always good to chat.
Take care.
Bye.